everybody, welcome back to the channel, and if you're here for the very first time, welcome. I'm Jane and my husband Mike is behind the camera. We're British, early retirees, we've got no debt, we've paid off the mortgage, and we live a thrifty, frugal and money-saving life here in Brittany in northwest France. And every Wednesday we open our doors and invite you in for a mid-week money chat. And this week is all about answering all of your questions about our early retirement and how we did it. I'm going to start off with a very quick canter through our lives from 2008 to 2018. In 2008, we were £45,000 in personal debt. We'd had a small extension built on our house and we bought a car on finance. And we decided in 2 years to pay that off. And we changed our lives drastically and became super frugal. In that part of my life, I started blogging our debt-free journey, and my blog was called Frugal Queen. And I know some of you have been following me all of those years back to those blogging days. And the rest is history. We paid off those debts. Now, we didn't stop there. We then downsized our house to a what British people call a 2-up, 2-down terraced house. We then continued adding money, saving money to our mortgage. So our mortgage at the time was £777 a month, and we always made it up to £1,000. So we paid off £333 off the capital every single month, and it drastically reduced the term of our mortgage. So we only had a small mortgage, as you can see, for £777 a month, and that was over a 10-year period as well. So wasn't a big mortgage, and you can see between the time we moved and then we pretty much paid it off. So we were overpaying our mortgage. We had a small mortgage. We had a tiny house with tiny bills, with tiny taxes, and we were really frugal. So we were really frugal with food. We weren't eating out. We took our lunch to work every single day. We took coffee to work every single day. We only had one car, and when I got another job, we both, and it was fortuitous, we know that, worked on the same street in Plymouth. If I went out with my colleagues on a very rare occasion, I could go to a local, what we called a chippy, and get cheesy chips and curry sauce for £1. And then we would go somewhere outside, because it was very much an outside culture in Plymouth, and have a coffee. So £1.50 would be my once in a blue moon spending on food that I hadn't prepared myself. At the same time, I was blogging with Frugal Queen in France. I would often, as a blogger, get paid to write articles. I would be interviewed by magazines and newspapers, and they would pay me. I would charge them, I would invoice them that. I would then do promotional work, and I did promotional work for people like Tesco's and Sainsbury's and Aldi. And they would often send me supermarket vouchers, which would be to just create one recipe, but it would cover my whole week shopping. We also always had a lodger. So we would also have a colleague or people living with us and paying to live with us. Mike worked overtime for about 8 years, and that meant he either worked Saturday or he worked Sunday to earn extra money. Mike also went to a physical auction in Plymouth called Shubrooks, and he used to buy vintage cameras and vintage radios, and then he would sell those on eBay. That then gave us what we called eBay money. So a lot of our costs were cost neutral. If I needed a new coat, a new pair of shoes, or likewise with Mike, we would then buy that with what we call our eBay money. And our eBay money then bought more stock to sell things on eBay. And you see where you're going with this one. So we did all of those things, and we did all of that hustle and grinding. Also, as a teacher, every year I marked GCSE English right up until the end of my career. That gave me an extra pot of money each year. I also, right up until the end of my career, worked as a private tutor a couple of nights a week after school. So it's the reason why we don't need to hustle and grind and all those things now. It's because we did it in preparation then. Which takes us up to 2018, when we left our full-time jobs in the UK, both of us working in Plymouth, and we moved out here to Brittany and northwest France. And when we came here, although we were retired from our main jobs, I wasn't retired. I worked full-time, which actually over the period of the days was actually 24 hours a week, teaching English online to Chinese children. In 2021, I stopped doing that simply because the Chinese government changed the laws on who could actually do that job teaching children. And you actually had to be in the country with a Chinese work visa to do that. So I stopped doing that. We already had the YouTube channel at that stage. One of my family members said to me, just very glibly at the time, "Does this mean you're going to become a full-time YouTuber now?" And I thought, well, why not give it a go? So we started to be our channel full-time and as our main side hustle in 2021. So now, let's go to your questions. We've got Mirth171 asks, how long before retirement did you start planning? Well, in the UK, there are two pensions. There is your state pension, your government pension that you pay through taxes all of your working life. So from the day you start work, you're paying into that and you get your pension at 67 years old. And then you can get a job, and not all jobs have it, but you get a job where there is a work-based occupational pension. We both had jobs that had work-based occupational pensions. And from the day we started work, we paid into that pension scheme. And we paid both of us handed over 10% of our income. At some stage we were paying between us about $750 a month into our pensions between our two incomes. You can see we were putting the money away from the day we started work. Now, I didn't start teaching till I was 37. Mike started before that. He started off in the civil service, which is a government job, and then he got a local government job, which is working for Plymouth City Council. But all the time that we were doing that, we were paying into our pensions, and that's the first part of preparing yourself for retirement as a British person. So I think that's answered your question. How long before retirement did you start planning financially? From the days we started work with jobs that had pensions. Nicola Cornish asks the question, what motivated you to become early retirees? When you have a pension plan of any sort and you get your paperwork through every year showing how much you've paid in and how much you would get at 55, 60 or 67 if you took that pension out at any stage, comes to you every year as a pension statement. So we had already calculated that we will probably have enough money, and I'll explain to you more in later questions, to retire at 55. So what motivated us is because you can retire at 55 in the UK. You can retire and take your workplace pension. Now, not all of them are very good. Some of them are better than others. And ours was based on, and I'll explain that more in another question, but it was based on our incomes, our average salary. So I'll explain that more in another question. Xenia 6040 asks, why not work part-time? Xenia, we do. We run a YouTube channel. You will see us online for, 30 minutes a week in our little 10-minute videos, but actually each one of them has taken at least 3 hours in preparation, and it takes Mike about half a day in video editing to make each one. So in all total, we work probably 2.5 days a week on our YouTube channel. So I think we'll consider that as working part-time. Mrs. H, 3972 asks, would you be able to live off your occupational pensions, or if you didn't have a YouTube income, would you need paid work? We could live off our occupational pensions. We wouldn't be able to save anywhere near as much money as we save now. Our YouTube income is a top up. It's a side hustle. It's a bit more money. Anyone will tell you with YouTube channel, it's money from a hobby. It's not a massive amount of money. Not unless you've got 150, 250 subscribers and you're getting, let's say, I want to say 50,000 views for each and every one of your videos, because as YouTubers, we are paid a tiny squidge of money each time every single one of you very kindly lets one or more of the adverts roll. So you can see from that, and we get on average between 5,000 to 10,000 views per video. And if a percentage of those people let it go. So it's not a lot of money. Could we live off our occupational pensions? If we had to, yes, we could. Julie Martin, 2251, you got a very short answer to this question. She says, did you invest in the stock market? Simple answer to that, no. Next question comes from Got Something to Say Now. My goodness me, I bet you're fun at parties. What a morbid question this one is. This person asks, have you prepared for a time where one of you gets ill or one of you passes away? Can you survive on one pension? Would you have to move house? Okay, let's assuming that we're going to make it at least to 67 or older before one of us gets ill or passes away. So, one of us will still have all of our state pension and all of our own pension, and half of the other person's occupational pension. Would that be enough for one person to live off? Yes. Would you have to move house? And we've shared in previous videos that we do not intend to stay in this property where we've got 2.5 acres of land and we're very, very rural. We don't intend to be here. We intend to be off this property before we are 70. We intend to move south. We intend to move somewhere warmer and with less land. Probably with less land. We say with less land. You never
If it's all forests, all right, but less land.
less land. So yes, but would we move house? I don't know. If I was suddenly widowed at 67 years old, I don't know. Sell the lot and go on cruises and I don't know.
Be a cruise queen.
Be a cruise queen. I don't know. And I do want to say this to you because I thought your question was really morbid and verging on inappropriate. And I wanted to say this to anybody who's dwelling on this or worrying about this. If you keep worrying about tomorrow, it's going to rob you of today. So what I will say about this is we will worry about that nearer the time. The next question, which were similar questions asked by Larissa, Our Next Season, and Mel 5589. And it was all basically this. Did you do any trial run exercises while still working? Basically, they were asking questions like, did you practice living off a retirement budget? So when we finished our careers in 2018, our net income coming into the house for 2 people working was £4,000 a month. And as I've said to you, our mortgage was £777. We overpaid it to £1,000. Our bills, everything else took us up to about £1,500 a month, including the mortgage, the overpayment and all our bills. and we kept every other bill back to its absolute bare bones. And you can see from that how far beneath our means we lived. We lived far more frugally than we do now. Gas was cheaper, water was cheaper, petrol was cheaper, food was cheaper, everything was cheaper back then. There was more things available in charity shops back then. The economy has changed drastically. So where were we at that time? Lucky, that's where we were. We were in a lucky economy. We were lucky to be having the income that we had. So what practice did we do? We had no debt. Our mortgage was small and we were overpaying it right up until the end. Right up until the end, we overpaid that. And of course, when we sold that house and moved here, we didn't have much left on our mortgage. I think I worked it out. We had about 20 grand left on our mortgage. And obviously we cleared that when we sold and came out here with capital. And we've been actively saving money. Those of you who know me, and I'm open with you, previously to that, we'd, saved. We were left 25,000 when Mike was bereaved. It was very sad bereavement. Not going to go into that, but we were left 25,000. We took that and our savings and we bought a holiday house out here, which the holiday house with all the taxes, the property and the estate agents was £32,000. So you can see, we already were putting money out here anyway. We were in a property here anyway. So we were saving money for our French house to pay bills on it, and we were saving. So we were living well beneath our means, but not to the point of starving. I mean, we were coming out to France for 8 weeks a year.
Yep.
We had a house that we did very minimal things to it. For example, we bought a kitchen, a sale kitchen, a display sale kitchen. No, I think we bought the kitchen in Wicks. The kitchen was less than half price. We brought it out bit by bit in our car and fitted it in our house out here. So we really didn't spend a lot of money. So what trial exercises did we do? I would say from 2008 onwards, we lived super frugally. We earned extra money and we saved as much money as we could. Valerie, you ask a good question. I like this one. Did you ever go through a period after you retired where you were bored? Absolutely no way. I now reflect on our lives and think, I don't know how I had time to go out and work. So since we retired, since we moved to France, we've renovated 2 houses. So we had our village house that we had to renovate to sell. And then this house was an absolute ruin. Mike took it apart and rebuilt it. It was rotten inside. He took it to the dirt floor, literally built the floors, built the walls, built the ceiling, just built it all. Mike, you are my absolute hero. You're wonderful. You built the house that I'm living in.
I'm just a builder. That's all, my darling.
Just a builder. He put the walls up. He insulated it. Absolutely everything. Then he cleared the garden. Then he cut up trees. Didn't stop. I was working for 3 years. Then we're running a YouTube channel. And then we live in a foreign country. We're learning the language. Just going to buy a pot of paint is an adventure. Going to the supermarket is an adventure. French charity shops are an adventure. Making new friends, meeting new people. We also take a trip each year here in France. We take a trip each year. So far, we've only had trips in Brittany, but we're going to go further afield. We're always working on our garden. I'm a crafter. I'm a quilter. Mike has learned video editing from scratch, and he's very good at it. We both go to French classes. We have a social life. We have 2 dogs. Oh, I couldn't. I'm
Bored?
time. Bored?
Are we bored?
No.
No, we're not.
No, we're not. Thanks, Alison. The next one came from Ali, or Ali Asian or something. Ali. Anyway, the question is, why France? Any immigration problems? Okay, why France? Look at the map. France is next door to the UK, and like the hundreds of thousands of British people, that's where we used to come on holiday all of the time. You literally drove your car on the ferry in Plymouth and drove it off the other side in France. And people have been doing that for Yeah, well,
Since the 70s.
Since the 70s.
Regularly since the 70s.
Yeah, since the 70s. Roll on, roll off ferries. I mean, literally in the past, we've had things where we've come to France for the day, we've come to France for the weekend, we've come for a week, we've popped on over, and it's just like it's always been home from home, coming here, absolute second home. Now, immigration problems, and this is the bit where I can just put my hands up and go, we moved here in 2018 when the UK was still part of the European Union, and we had freedom of movement, so we could just come here without telling anybody, without asking anybody, and you could just come and live and work here and any other of the 27 countries in the European Union. And we feel very, very privileged to have arrived as citizens of the European Union. And I don't care who I upset by saying this. Even though the UK has left, I still feel very, very much like a citizen of the European Union. AJO6751 says, why France versus the UK? Were there financial advantages? No financial advantages at all. It swings and roundabouts between one country and another. Some things in the UK are cheaper than things here in France. For example, the UK has the NHS. You have nothing to pay at all for any medical care. Here in France, we have medical costs. They are very small. Nonetheless, there are medical costs, and it is not free. Here in France, of our YouTube income, we hand over 24.6% of gross of that income, and that goes to pay for healthcare, any social security benefits, and that pays for a small French pension after you have to pay at least 10 years and you get a tiny amount. I'm saying probably 100 a month back. Nonetheless, there's swings and roundabouts. Property's cheaper here. Water is cheaper here. But when we left, gas and electricity was cheaper in the UK. It's now cheaper in France. Property taxes are cheaper here. But lots of other things are more expensive here. So if I wanted to book a foreign holiday, which I don't, but if I wanted to, it would be cheaper for me to buy it from the UK, go back to the UK, get on a plane in the UK and go on a foreign holiday. Those are just examples. We didn't come here for a cheaper life. We came here for a better quality of life. Next question comes from L. Ward. Do you qualify for the UK full state pension? Yes, we have both paid in 35 plus years of full national insurance contributions to get our full UK state pension, which whoop-de-doo-de-doo at the moment is £220 a week. So nothing to get excited about, but we've paid in and we'll get it back. Next question comes from Tina Nolan. Bloody hell, Tina, you don't hold back, do you? This is Tina's question. What pension pot do you have? Is your pension your only income? Do you have any ISAs? What pension do you have? Is it a drawdown or is it annuity? Blimey, Tina, what do you want to do? Come round my house and count how many pairs of socks I've got? Right, here we go. Don't hold back, some of these people.
Some people know, they want to know the ins and outs of your ins and outs. Yes.
Right, okay. We don't have that kind of pension. So I was a teacher, Mike was a local government officer, and we have a pension which is called a defined benefits pension. Those are the types of pensions held by people like the armed forces, the police force, the NHS, prison service, social workers, national and local government, teaching, all the people like who work for Customs and Excise, Border Force, all of those people. We are effectively and officially, all of them, government employees. And that is the biggest body of employees in the UK. Most people in the UK work in one way or another for the government. So our pensions are based on an average salary scheme. So that would mean from the beginning of when our pensions was low, to our income was low, to the end when our incomes peaked. They took the average salary of that, and we get a percentage of that money, and there's maths to work that out. Now, please do not confuse that with a few people who are a bit older than us who have something called a final salary scheme, where their final salary, and then they get a percentage of that. We don't have that. So we have an average salary scheme, defined benefits, which is very different from a drawdown. It is very different from an annuity. So it's very different from, say, working for somebody like Sainsbury's, where there is a pot of money. And upon retirement, you can take this pot of money, you can buy an annuity with it, or you can port it over, either a bit a year or the lot of it, and then you draw down X amount a year. And there are tax advantages to how much you draw down. We don't have that. That does mean there isn't a pot of money that we are ever going to run out of. And if Mike and I live to 105 years old, we get our state pension until we're 105 years old, and we get our work-based pensions until we are 105 years old. Both of us have index-linked pensions, which go up with inflation. So for all of those years that people were lucky and inflation didn't go up, neither did their pensions. So we've had small pension increases. We had a massive increase when inflation was high. Didn't feel any of the benefit because costs are high. And then so each year it will go up a bit. But if inflation comes down to 1 or 2%, that is all that our pensions will increase by. I want to go into a little bit further into Tina's question here. Obviously, if we'd have worked for longer, we would have had more pension. We could have left our pensions alone and carried on working. I could have worked teaching online, for example, and carried on working and left our pensions there, and they would have grown a bit, not a lot. They would have grown not a lot. And then we could have taken them at 60 or at 67 or at any time in between. So because we took our pensions at 55 years old, obviously they are much smaller pensions. It's pro rata, isn't it? But you get it for longer. It works out okay in the end if you live on average 77 or more years. So I hope that explains something about that. So like I say at the beginning of every video, we are early retirees, and we took a long run up at it. And to summarise, we had no mortgage, we've got no debts, we lived very frugally, we were very well used to living beneath our means. We were able to take our occupational pensions at 55 years old. We were able either to carry on making money on the side. I would have carried on writing. I could have carried on online teaching for a few hours a week, or we carry on as we are with our YouTube channel, which is a side hustle. And you know, we do it together. We work from home, we do it together.
It's lovely, be together at home.
Yeah, and we really, really enjoy it. So I hope that answers lots of your questions today. And I think a really important one to add in here, whether we were in the UK or we are in France here, is the fact that we've got universal healthcare. Our healthcare isn't dependent on having a job. If I was French, if I lived here all my life, whether I was born French or not, and here all my life, and I had periods of worklessness, through my fault or not my fault, I would still have full access to healthcare. If I have cancer once, twice, 3 times, 5 times, it doesn't cost me anything.
Cancer costs no one any money.
No, so if you're here in France anyway, and even if you have a mutuelle top-up insurance or not, and you have a serious illness, for example, you went into hospital with COVID, you had pneumonia, you were in a car crash, you fell off a horse, you broke your neck, you got cancer again and again and again, zero cost, absolute zero cost to you. That is totally covered. You've got very small things to cover. I went into hospital for an exploratory biopsy. I went in for a biopsy. All I had to pay was €75 to have a private room. And I only had to pay that because I have a lower tier mutual private insurance, which I don't pay for private hospital rooms or things like that. So my private insurance is only €50 a month. So yes, I have to add that in because of universal healthcare, and here in France, because it's not completely universal, affordable healthcare. It's one of the reasons that it makes it easier in some countries other than others to retire early. We made 3 previous videos a few months ago where we answered lots and lots and lots of your questions about our life here in France. And the links to those videos are in the description box below this video. We hope that you enjoyed us answering your questions about early retirement and how we managed to do it and how we prepared for it. And if you did, go on, hit the like button. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.